Okay. Like the stories that I started telling Carol, she was writing them down. They mostly happened in Winterport.
Really?
That's where we lived for quite a while. Papa worked for Link Blaisdell Apple Orchards. And my biggest memory from there was about a pair of shoes. Mama took me to Winterport to buy new shoes.
Yeah.
And had them bring out a pair and try on. And oh, they were so beautiful.
How old were you?
Yeah, they were tan, and they had a little heart-shaped inset in them. And they were too small. They hurt my feet wicked. But I wouldn't let Mama know because I thought they were so beautiful. I just had to have them. And she of course, they would have had a bigger pair, but being just a little kid, I was only 4 or 5. I didn't know that. So I suffered with those shoes for a year before I outgrew them. Well, I had outgrown them anyway in the first place. And then my nose, that's why it's so big.
Why?
Because Link Blaisdell, his apple orchard, he had good apples and he had cider apples. And the cider apples, he had an iron pipe that came down through the ceiling, and he ran into the pipe and hit me right in the nose.
Oh. What's your earliest memory of when you were just a little girl?
Oh, I was about a year old, probably.
What?
I remember we lived in a camp. That's where I was born, was in a camp in Main Street. But Main Street was so small it didn't even have a town clerk. That's why it says Harmony on my birth certificate.
Wow. Huh.
Actually, it was Harmony, I suppose. When I started school, I went to a one-room schoolhouse.
Wow. Wow.
That's how come I happened to skip the 6th grade.
Oh.
I skipped the 6th, went from the 5th to the 7th.
Yeah.
I would never let a kid of mine skip, though.
No. Why?
I lost one whole year of arithmetic
Wow.
because I took everything with the other upper classes,
Yeah.
everything except arithmetic.
Wow.
Okay, I started high school in Herman. I went 1 week in Herman, and then I transferred to Bangor. And then from Bangor, I transferred to Milo. And we settled in Milo. That's where I graduated from high school. I met your father. I don't remember the first time I ever met him, but I remember the first time I ever saw him.
Yeah.
I said, he's mine. And he was.
Yeah. What did you guys do? Did you go to dances or socials or anything?
Not until after we were married and our kids were grown. We went to a dance one night in Happy Acres was the name of it. We met Ines and Dell there. I was so surprised to see them there, and they were surprised to see me. So after that, we went every Saturday night. You know how your father danced.
I've seen him.
Fast.
Yeah.
He liked fast music. We met Al and Mary McKean at a dance. They were from Hamden.
Yeah.
And one time the phone rang and I answered it, and this woman's voice said, "I bet you don't know me." I said, "I bet I don't too." She said, "Well, I'm from out of town." I said, "I know a lot of people from out of town." She said, "Well, what if I said dumb broad?" I said, "Oh, hi, Mary, how are you?"
Let's see. Do you remember anything about high school?
I belong to the winter sports team.
Really?
I took first place in ice skating.
Wow.
I got a trophy for it,
Yeah.
but of course it's gone, just like everything else is gone.
Where was Dad living when you met him? Was it down in Derby?
He was
And
living in the house where they lived when I met your father. I remember, I remember he lived across the river from me, and he had a boat down back. So when he wanted to see me, he'd get in the boat, go row across the river. We went back and forth across the river many, many times. I know one time your father wanted to come across to see me, but he couldn't get the boat. I had it on the other side. And so he he took off all of his clothes and he held them like this with one hand and swam with the other and went across and got the boat and brought it over to my side.
what did you and Dad do in Providence?
Oh, I didn't do anything. He worked for Nicholson File. I was pregnant with Ted.
Did he ever take you skating on Lake Edith?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, Lake Edith was our favorite spot for skating. Yeah. One time, you kids, a whole bunch of you, went skating down back of Southerns,
Yeah.
and you talked me into going down and skating with you. And I fell so many times and hit that knee that I broke the kneecap.
Oh, you're kidding.
That wasn't fun.
No. Wow.
How about Jerry's car?
Jerry's car. Tell me about that.
Well, he went to Vietnam and he left his car with Carol and me. Carol stayed with me. She had Tommy at that time, just had Tommy. And so, oh yeah, he went to Vietnam and he left Carol and Tommy in his car with us. And Carol and I took that car everywhere. We got Billy, no, not Billy Curtis, the middle boy.
Basil?
Huh?
Basil Curtis? I don't know.
I don't hear. Anyway, so when Jerry came back from Vietnam, that car was a wreck. I mean, we took it everywhere. We both learned to drive on it. When when Jerry came back from Vietnam and saw the wreck his car was in, he said, "What happened to my car?" I said, "We don't know." But she and I both learned to drive on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember we didn't have a car when us kids were growing up.
No.
tell us some things about how you got around without having a car and
Papa took us everywhere. So we didn't have any car, and when we wanted to go like to the lake for the 2 weeks vacation, Papa took us and came and got us. Well, it was a job just to get all you kids together. But to get together and get your feet dressed, somebody was always minus one shoe. So everybody would have to pitch in and try to find the shoe. And one year, Bish, I know one year we had the stockings all hung up, and he put a 50-cent piece in each stocking.
Wow.
One other time, we found a seat, an armrest, an armrest in a car. And I said, phew, that belongs to Harry Layton. Oh. And it did. It was his. You could tell it was his because it stunk so of cigar smoke. He always had that stinking cigar in his mouth. I remember with all of you kids were all at home, and when I wanted groceries, I used to call the store and tell them what I wanted, and then I'd call Bish's taxi, and I'd call Bish to come and get the groceries, and I'd pay for them, and he'd take me home. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
No.
I want to hear a little bit about Hovey's Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Swimming in the river.
I remember most about Hovey's Beach is Jason almost drowning.
Really?
I started to walk out in the water, and something said, turn around. Something in my head said, turn around, turn around. I turned around and Jason was floating in the water. Seems though everything bad happened to Jason when I was taking care of him. The bear dog bit him in the head. We had more fun with he and David, taking them to camp with us. I wonder if anybody owns Joe Mary now.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's still up and running. But why don't you tell a few stories about Joe Mary Lake?
I know when your father was at his last, he and I were sitting looking out over the lake, and he said, I'm at Joe Mary, so I'm happy. And when I took him south that fall, he died in October. Yeah. We loved those wild raspberries. Your father just loved that wild raspberry pie.
Me too.
So just as soon as the raspberries were ripe, we'd pick them, and then we'd bring them back to camp and make the pies. But we weren't selfish. We always told everybody where the raspberries were. We went one year, instead of hiring a cottage, we went to Dollar Island, and I made a concoction for you kids. You didn't like it. So Ted Jr. made up a song about it. It was instant potato and jelly. You guys wanted something sweet to eat. That was all I had was instant mashed potato and So Ted made up a song about it. But isn't that strange? My youngest son and my oldest son both went before I did.
Well, how about the time that I threw a pair of scissors and got Donnie in the back?
Oh, yes. He was, I don't know, he did something to you. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, and you had a pair of scissors in your hand, and you, without even thinking, you just threw them. They stuck right in his back. But that wasn't bad enough. He had a cord, bare on one end, and had the plug-in on the other. And you said, "Here, Donnie, hold this." And you passed him the end that wasn't alive. And then you plugged it in, knocked him for a loop, went from the living room out to the kitchen.
Oh, boy. Are you sure that was me?
I buzzed
It must have been some other kid.
Oh, no, it was you. You weren't an angel.
No?
No. Almost, but not quite. But I suppose I'm lucky that my kids didn't do anything worse than that. When we lived in Derby, I wasn't born yet. Papa worked for the line. It was a key operator.
Yeah.
When I do remember when we lived in Derby, he was a mechanic. He and both of my brothers were mechanics. Papa showed Ted, Big Ted Sr. Papa taught him to do body and fender work on the cars. That's what Papa was doing at the time. When we went camping, your father and I, we missed Debbie's grandchildren, Isaac's father, Jason and David. We missed them so much, we said, let's go back and get them. So we turned around and drove back and got them, left Debbie a note. And after that, we took them for camping every summer.
Wow.
We taught them to ride the moped. I know Carol and Jerry and the kids came to camp to visit. And so we were going to be kind to them and let them learn to drive the mopeds. One twin took the moped and went for a ride and came back limping and sniffling. And so he said, well, that's okay, you'll try again. And we took the other twin, and they were gone about 10 minutes, and they came back sniffling and crying. And they did eventually learn to ride it, though, but not like David and Jason. One time, Jason wanted to help Loretta and Jim with the baked bean supper. And so Loretta said, okay, Jason, you can pour the lemonade for the kids. And so he did. He was pouring the lemonade, and Nellie, Carrie's cousin, I guess she was, Nellie said, look, little girl, you could probably do that better if you used your right hand. Jason says, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy, and I'm left-handed. But he was doing fine, I thought. We couldn't wait for Wednesday night for baked beans. We liked them so much we had to make a a pit at our campsite and made our own baked bean suppers, usually for Saturday night.
You used to take us kids down back, didn't you, when we were little?
Yeah. I took Debbie down one time, and I let her dangle her feet in the water. You should have seen the bloodsuckers that were there. One time Ed asked me, he said, "Mama, where's God?" I said, "He's up in heaven." He said, "Well, why did somebody take the ladder so he can't get down again?"
You know what I remember? I remember all the clothes that you would make us when we were little. I used to love all the clothes.
That was made them without a sewing machine, too.
Really?
Sewed them all by hand.
No, I didn't know that. Oh my goodness.
Janice didn't like them because you always got pink and she always got blue.
She liked blue though. She liked blue, I think.
But I thought pink and blue was cute.
Do you remember any of your grandparents?
I never had any grandparents.
Everybody has grandparents.
One of them died 3 years before I was born.
Oh.
And then another grandfather, my mother, when we asked about him, Mama always said he was dead. He was dead to her, but he wasn't dead. I mean, I was a teenager when he died.
Oh,
I could have known him,
that's right.
but she said he was dead
Why?
because he gave her away.
Just her?
Her mother died when she was 8 years old, and he gave my mother and my Aunt Emma, he gave
No, was that the youngest?
away,
No.
Oh.
and she never forgave him for it. Never. Which I think is wrong. I mean, it was between him and the kids. It wasn't our fault. We should have been able to know our grandfather,
Yeah. And
I think.
yeah. And he had his reasons. I mean, it's too bad she didn't talk to him just to find out why. You know.
Well, unfortunately...
You never knew she was an orphan?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
She had a younger sister, that Selena.
But I never knew which other one.
Yeah.
Now, where was Grammy on the list of kids?
Kind of in the middle.
She was in the middle, and where was Emma?
A year or two younger. And then there was a real young girl, Selena.
And he
Probably too young to go into a home. And then there were a couple older sisters and older brother.
Maybe he chose the ones he felt could adapt to it better.
Yes, he had his reasons.
Yeah.
And they lived in Bangor
Yeah.
for a while. And then after he retired...
I think that was why I was the way I was with my grandkids. I loved them to pieces. I cannot understand. Like my sister Erla, she couldn't have kids.
Right.
She got pregnant once, but they took the baby. They said that the baby might possibly live, but she certainly wouldn't.
Wow.
So my mother said, "Why don't you give Erla one of your children? You've got so many." I said, "How am I supposed to decide which child to keep and which one to give away?" She said, "Yeah, I suppose." When I first started going with Ted, my mother said, "He's too old for you." He was only 3 years older. Anyway, I wanted to go to the Milo Fair. And she said, "Okay, but you be home before dark." So I hung around till I got your father to take me home. We had to walk, of course, and no cars. We had to walk. And it was getting dark. So when I got, there was a dip in the road. So when I got to there, I told Ted, I said, you better not walk me the rest of the way. He said, why? And I said, well, because I just don't think you better go any further. And then when I got on the other side of that dip, there was my mother. Lucky, lucky I told him to go home when I did. Another thing, when Ted and I were going together, Papa had an old Packard car, and that had the most distinctive sound. We could always tell when it was the Packard coming. We'd run and get in the woods so that he wouldn't see us. So, see, I wasn't nice.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
That's typical kids behavior.
Yeah. You just wanted some time with your boyfriend.
But they didn't think he should be my boyfriend. They thought he was too old. They didn't stop to think he was in the same grade that I was in.
I still don't get that.
But he started a year later, and I skipped a grade. He didn't.
Does she know why he started late?
Do you know why he started later?
Do I know why? He said it was because he was sick a lot. But I didn't think 3 years was that much difference. He played basketball
Mm-hmm.
for the first team. And so he asked me one night, he said, can I walk you home? And I said, yeah. And so when he came out after the game, he came out with another woman. So I didn't say a word. I just pretended that everything was the way it should be. And I let him go. I don't remember what her name was. I went skating with some other guy.
Payback.
That'll do it every time.
Well, do you think you had a good life and was it all worth it?
Oh, definitely all worth it. If I could go back and do just one day over again, it would be a day with you kids. Wouldn't matter where or when, just with you kids. And I guess I would want to say to my great-great-grandchildren and all of the ones that come after them, I'd want to say, I hope that you've been as happy as I have, and wish we could do it all over again.